how's the music industry going to survive? Are musicians making any money doing the whole live stream thing? It's fairly unpredictable, but we'll talk about the money side of things in the music industry. It's Wednesday, it's May 27th, and this is the current music news. Hi, I'm Jade.
And I'm Jay. So there's a global pandemic happening. The music industry is in crisis. Nobody is getting rich in music right now, right? Well, maybe no one's getting rich, but some investors who are pretty wealthy to begin with are about to get richer. The Warner Music Group, that's a big major label group that's home to artists ranging from Led Zeppelin to Cardi B to Ed Sheeran. Well, they've announced they're going to go ahead with their initial public stock offering. That's going to value the Warner Music Group at $13.3 billion. Not a bad profit for the Russian-born billionaire whose conglomerate bought Warner Music Group 9 years ago for just $3.3 billion. So that was back in 2011. The recording industry was in free fall, CD sales were tanking, and at that point it was still really unclear whether there was going to be any money for anyone in streaming. Right now, we've learned the answer is yes, definitely so. Even before this whole global pandemic thing happened, streaming was booming. Profits from streaming services were going up, and now under lockdown, they've just been making more money because even though we've been talking about how overall listening is down, basically what seems to have happened is that if you already had, say, a Spotify premium account, this is not the time that you're canceling it, and a lot of people have been jumping in to get those paid accounts on streaming services, so they've actually been making more money in recent months. So all this evidence that there is significant money to be made in streaming is surely going to fuel arguments for the idea that maybe some more of that money should go to the people who are actually making the music, the artists.
So when coronavirus hit, pretty much everyone from Christine the Queens to Neil Young jumped on their computer and started live streaming music. And at the time, it was free and it felt really necessary. It felt like that connection between the audience and the artist was just doing some good, like, mental health goodness for everybody. But as this drags on, artists are trying to figure out, well, I should be able to make some money doing this because I'm not making money touring. Album sales are not where they used to be. Streaming your music doesn't make as much money. So how do you make the money? How do you make a business out of this? Well, Sarah Quinn of Tegan & Sarah told The Guardian recently, "My hesitation is that live stream is a form of labor that we do for free, which generates money for YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch." Laura Marling, she's taking an entirely new and interesting angle on this. So this weekend, she's going to be doing 2 live streams. These are going to be concerts in an actual venue, an actual music hall. So they're ticketed. In fact, the shows are already sold out. I'm sorry, you can't get into them. But there's actual money coming in for these shows, which means they can invest. Because if you've watched some of these live streams, it's kind of iffy, the quality, the sound of the artist. Some of them are musicians and they're not engineers, so it's a little bit not as great of a live sound. But when you have that money, you can hire professional videographers, you can get an engineer in there. So it's going to feel like a traditional staged show. And the UK ticketing company that's handling this whole show, they said that this might be the way of the future. Their CEO, this is Dice TV. It's a fairly new thing that got started pretty much as soon as the pandemic started and everybody started streaming. They said that when lockdown hit, they were seeing lots of artists jumping onto Instagram Live, and they were just doing like a 2-song thing. And they said people really need to figure out how to do this right, and they need to charge for it.
Steel guitarist Bucky Baxter has died at age 65. The cause of his death has not yet been announced. You have heard Bucky Baxter's playing if you're familiar with albums like Bob Dylan's Time Out of Mind or Bob Dylan's MTV Unplugged special. Maybe you've heard him on REM's album Green, or maybe you've heard him on Songs for Silverman by Ben Folds, or maybe you've heard him on Steve Earle albums like Copperhead Road and Guitar Town. Bucky Baxter was born in Florida, and he was a founding member of Steve Earle's band, The Dukes. Actually, it was Steve Earle who introduced him to Bob Dylan, and Bob Dylan ended up hiring Bucky Baxter to be part of his never-ending tour band from 1992 to 1999, which meant that Bucky Baxter played over 750 shows with Bob Dylan. His death was announced by his son, Raylan Baxter, a singer-songwriter who's also collaborated with his father, Bucky Baxter. Jade, I know you've had a chance to talk to Raylan Baxter before.
Yeah, he and I, we've sat down a couple of times, and his father comes up because, you know, that's just a huge part of his life. In fact, a couple of times we talked about the fact of how inspiring it is as a young person who's thinking about having a go at music, growing up, and the people who are your musical collective surrounding you are Steve Earle and Bob Dylan. Yeah, that'll have an impact on a kid.
That's today's music news. We'll be back with another update, so like and follow us, you can be sure to catch it. In the meantime, listen to The Current on your radio, on your smart speaker, on our app, on our web stream, and click in the comments to let us know what music news stories are meaningful to you right now.
Well, one of those artists that had to cancel the live tour and sort of change things around is Billie Eilish. And she recently released this video that was sort of like the show opener for her tour. It's a 3.5-minute film that she wrote, that she directed, and it addresses body shaming. And it alludes a lot to the fact that she wears baggy, loose clothes. And, there's no good spot for a young teenager trying to make pop music. Even if you wear the kind of more scantily clad outfits, you get a little bit of hate. If you wear the loose baggy clothes, you get that as well. So she said the film was part of this tour, and she said that it's all about trying to get back at those opinions or reflect those opinions and have people think about it a little bit more. So the film is called Not My Responsibility.
Do you know me? Really know me? You have opinions about my opinions. About my music. About my clothes. About my body. Some people hate what I wear. Some people praise it. Some people use it to shame others. Some people use it to shame me.